Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Gerald here with an update for you on the weather going throughout the next couple of days and into early next week. And luckily, I see a big time pattern change in store for many of us, especially compared to what we've been seeing over the past couple of days with kind of all of this very muggy weather as well as those severe storms we saw yesterday through sections of Kentucky, Tennessee, the Carolinas, and Virginia. So luckily that is behind us now, and we have really just a much nicer pattern moving on in for many of us folks here throughout those areas. So unfortunately, this won't be all nice for everybody over the next couple of days, but for many of us, it does look much nicer. So we're definitely going to discuss that here in today's video. Also, if you were not able to see, I wasn't able to post a video yesterday because I was out storm chasing in Virginia. So again, that was about a 4 to 5 hour drive from my house here in South Carolina. So unfortunately, I just was not going to be able to fit a video in there. But I did see some pretty cool things, and I definitely want to share that with you here. So we're going to start here with a little bit of drone video I was able to capture yesterday. Now, this was near Danville, Virginia, which if you're not familiar with that area, it's kind of to the northeast of Greensboro, North Carolina, and to the northwest there of the Raleigh-Durham area. So this is in kind of south central Virginia, just a little bit east of the Appalachian Mountains. And you can see we had an absolutely massive storm in this area yesterday. And luckily, I was able to capture this with my drone. And you know, this was quite the storm to look at yesterday, and you can see this was a very big, expanding storm and also very low to the ground. So this definitely had the potential to produce a tornado. Luckily, it didn't yesterday, but this was just really a classic kind of mothership-like storm, as you probably hear a lot of the times. And I'm going to try to break down the kind of anatomy of this thing a little bit for you. So this kind of big lowering that you see here is actually just one big giant wall cloud. So this was rotating, this section of the storm here, this kind of lower part, and the way that this was kind of unfolding is the inflow in the storm was coming into the storm this direction, and that was feeding it. And then on the outside of it, we were getting this kind of section here where the rear flank downdraft that was coming back out this way. So this entire storm was just kind of spinning this way in general and rotating. Now, luckily, that rotation was in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, or what I mean by that is it was kind of up into this part of the storm compared to getting all the way down to the ground, which would have, of course, been a tornado. So, you know, luckily we didn't see that, but nonetheless, this was a very beautiful storm, and I'm definitely glad I made the trip up there to see it, and definitely paid off in the end. Another picture I was able to get here was as this thing was really kind of beginning to expand a bit, and as this was moving into the Danville area, and really this kind of back section of the storm that you see here really began to turn into quite the shelf cloud. So you'll notice that here, this is, you know, that little back piece that I showed you on the last image, just kind of as it began to expand and really strengthen, and we got that rear flank downdraft to really come into the backside and help this shelf cloud to form. And then kind of the core of the storm that you see here in a kind of nice, pretty way is now kind of hidden back into this middle section of the storm where there's a pretty strong hail core as well as some other things like strong wind and heavy rain. So again, very beautiful storm yesterday. Quite rare to get this kind of structure here in the mid-Atlantic. So definitely glad I was able to, again, get these images. With that said, though, I think we can go ahead and start talking about the actual weather now. I don't want to bore you too much with my storm chasing adventure from yesterday. And I will also add here, while I'm still talking about it, I will have another video out later tonight to show some dash cam video of that storm, and you can really see the rotation in it a little bit better in that video. But that's actually uploading right now in the background. So that should be out hopefully by 8 or 9 o'clock tonight. Unfortunately, it's a pretty large file, even though it's a short video, so it's just taking a while to upload. But now actually talking about the weather here for the next couple of days, because in the end, that's what you all came here for. So we'll start in the southeast here. We do have some scattered showers and storms this evening firing up here in this area. If it will reload here, there we go. So areas of southern South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and the Florida Panhandle really getting in on this action this evening. Luckily, not many of these storms are reaching that severe criteria. A couple are, but we're mainly getting special weather statements in here, and what that tells me is that these are strong storms, but they're not quite getting to that severe criteria. So, again, gusty winds with these, small hail, likely up to nickel size, wouldn't surprise me, but nonetheless, this is really just kind of some heavy rain and gusty winds that we're watching out for with these cells as they begin to work on through this part of the country. Now, as we go into tomorrow, I am expecting more severe weather, but nothing like we saw yesterday. And this will also be displaced to a pretty different part of the country. So back out west, we'll go to Texas, western Texas specifically, and kind of up into the Wisconsin area. But luckily, again, these are just marginal risks. So this is about as low of a threat as you can get while having a threat. So not to let your guard down because of that, but nonetheless, I don't expect any kind of big time outbreak or just a massive area under the gun. But nonetheless, you definitely want to kind of keep an eye to the sky and maybe an ear to the radio tomorrow, just to kind of make sure you have some way to get those warnings if something does begin to reach that severe criteria in these areas. Now, as we go into the next day, which is Friday, I do expect a bit more of a severe weather threat, and likely by the time we get to Friday, wouldn't be surprised to see this get bumped up to an enhanced risk for areas like Little Rock, Dallas, southeastern Oklahoma here, and even back down towards the Austin area. So, again, what's going to happen here Friday is we're going to get a cold front to kind of set up and begin to really work through the country. And as we get to Friday, it's really going to be able to tap into some of that Gulf of Mexico moisture and cause some severe weather here through this part of the country. So we'll definitely watch out for that come Friday. Now take a look at this here with the latest Euro model. I'm going to move this ahead to, we'll start with Thursday afternoon. Again, some low pressure up here could cause some isolated severe storms in Wisconsin and Iowa. And also, kind of the beginning of this cold front could cause some severe weather back out here into West Texas. But once we get into kind of Friday afternoons, whenever this cold front's really going to kind of begin to take shape here and begin to tap into some of that warm southerly flow and cause some of those stronger storms in those areas that I mentioned. Now I'm going to back this up a little bit actually into what is going on right now, and I forgot to mention this, but a lot of us here in the Mid-Atlantic are probably noticing a lot nicer weather today and even cooler, drier temperatures. That is because of this high pressure helping to kind of wedge in some of those drier dew points and cooler temperatures this afternoon. So it feels a bit more like late spring compared to summer today, which I'm sure is a nice relief for many of us here in this part of the country. And as we go into tomorrow, that should continue and even into likely Friday, holding on to that nicer, drier weather here into the Mid-Atlantic. Now, unfortunately, if you're on the coast from really Myrtle Beach south towards Charleston, Savannah, down towards Macon, Georgia, and through the eastern Gulf Coast here, you're not really going to be able to tap into this nicer weather until early next week. So we're going to have pretty widespread storms here on the coast for the next couple of days, really through this weekend. So if you do have beach plans, unfortunately, it doesn't look the best. So maybe have some kind of backup plan to find a way to get indoors if we do see some of those thunderstorms begin to develop in these areas over the next couple of days. But I don't think it'll be washed out the entire time, but definitely nonetheless unsettled weather here for those coastal areas. Really, again, from Myrtle Beach south through the eastern Gulf Coast throughout the next couple of days before going into this weekend. This cold front will finally begin to clear the country and bring much nicer weather to just about everyone east of the Mississippi by the time we get into next Monday. So that will definitely be nice to see. And unfortunately, we are still going to watch out for our Gulf Coast folks come early next week for some scattered storms. But I really do think by the time we get into early next week, it should be much nicer as a whole for many of us. So what does this mean in terms of precipitation? Again, you'll notice over the next couple of days, continued thunderstorms here into the southeastern coastline and eastern Gulf Coast. Also, those storms on Friday afternoon here in that slight risk that we just looked at on the Storm Prediction Center map, before eventually we get into Saturday afternoon and this line of storms begins to move off to the east and kind of begin to work its way back into the Mid-Atlantic and southeast by the time we get into Saturday. So this could pose another severe weather threat here on Saturday, but luckily right now it doesn't look like anything off the charts, but we'll definitely watch the trends on that and see if this continues to trend up or down. But luckily, by the time we get into Sunday afternoon, this cold front really should clear the country, and you'll notice much nicer, drier weather to start next week. And, this is going all the way into next Monday. Next Tuesday still looks quite nice, and even into the middle part of next week before things could get active again back out into the plains and kind of about that 7 to 10 day time period. So another way to look at this is the dew points, and again, you'll notice those kind of more beige colors and light green colors begin to overtake us as that cold front pushes on through this weekend. And as we get into next Monday afternoon, you'll notice widespread 40s and 50s for dew points as far south as the Gulf Coast. So next Monday looks like a really nice day for a lot of people here in the East. Kind of for kind of with the exception of the extreme Gulf Coast and down into Florida, still looks quite muggy, unfortunately, for you folks down there. But nonetheless, as a whole, it looks much nicer there in the medium range before going out to the long range. Again, we could see another plume of this kind of unsettled weather back out into the Great Plains going into that 7 to 10 day time period. So again, much nicer weather in store for a lot of us kind of in that medium range, which is nice because we have really been, kind of stuck in this very muggy thunderstorm-like pattern recently. So it will definitely be good to get kind of a bit of a shake-up on that and see something a little bit different. But with all that said, again, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow.